Send the link again soon. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, nice music. Is that Jenny?
Yeah.
Hi, Jenny. Woohoo!
I've literally just turned it on. Have you been waiting or have you just logged on?
No, I've been waiting for about 10 minutes, but that's all right.
What time did you... Because we're going to start at 6 here, so that should be 9 yours.
9 here, yeah. Yeah. A while back, Yoga Mark said that he was going to come on half an hour early to make sure everything was working. So I just turned it on. That's why.
We're just going to make sure the sound and everything working properly. Have you got your PC and everything ready?
How's it sound?
Okay. Brooke, Sue, can we have the music on now?
I'm going to try this. How's that? Jenny, how long am I talking?
30 minutes.
Okay. And is it going out to everybody at the conference, or how's it working?
Yeah, so everyone's back together, so you'll be with everyone from the conference.
Oh, fabulous. How many people are there?
I think it's about 65, 70.
Oh, nice.
Yes, this is
Good.
day 2. Well, we've got, you'll do half an hour and then there's one breakout for another half an hour.
Yeah, hey, Rudmeister. I like the look.
Big hug.
I like the look. Woohoo!
Oh, we missed you.
I know. It's great seeing you guys, though.
Oh, it's great seeing you too.
Yeah.
Home eventually. You know, you've done loads of traveling and now you're back home.
Oh my gosh, I know, and I'm leaving Wednesday morning.
Oh, where are you going?
Hawaii. I'm going to do a 3-day program with Rita.
Oh my
Rita
goodness.
Shuford.
Are you going to have a bit of a holiday before or after? Or?
Yeah. We're gonna spend a few extra days for sure. We'll get some beach time.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Hey, how's the picture? This is a new MacBook Pro that I just got.
I need to turn. Before
That's good.
someone comes in, I'm just going to make sure that we can get you on the screen and get your audio working properly. So,
yeah, good.
To Jen, and I'll busy myself in the background.
Okay.
So, do you know your topic?
Something about relationships, I think.
Yeah, that's good.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Good.
We didn't begin on time, so poor Sue had to just say 3 principles for us.
I didn't. I didn't hear from Mark anything more specific than he wanted me to say something about relationships. So
the thing is, I think now because yesterday, kind of for the newer people, they've got more of an idea about what it is and what it isn't. And I think really you can go anywhere with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Sue's going to ask her in a minute, just in case. But
take a guess on how many of the people there are new.
I think probably only 10 people.
Yeah. Okay.
10, maybe 15.
Yeah.
There's many practitioners here from all over Europe. We've got, do you know Karen Miller-Williams from Vancouver?
Yes. I know her well. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's come all the way from America just to be part of it.
Yeah. Is there enough light here, Jenny?
Pairing.
It's quite dark outside.
No, it looks good.
It does?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything more specific that Dicken needs to know about what to say? And like I said,
Your device is connected.
yes, Dicken. Hello.
Your internet connection is unstable.
Hi.
Hello. Yeah.
Thank you.
We want all the magic words. Hi.
How's it going?
It's beautiful.
Oh, great, great. What an exciting thing.
It is. It is. No, go with your, you know, what? Just go with your wisdom in this moment. It'll be just perfect.
Okay. I hope,
Just such a lovely feeling, Dicken, here. It just is.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Well, I hope the other guy shows up. Hi.
Hi, Dicken.
How you doing,
Hey,
Dicken?
hey, Mark.
It's a bit of a house party.
Hi, Sheila. Oh, it's great to see you.
We so appreciate you. We so appreciate this, Dicken.
Oh, man, are you kidding? It's my honor.
Everybody's looking forward to seeing you.
Oh yeah, we need to put them on.
On here or on there?
So, yeah, they should. This is the same link for live streams.
Recurring meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, so I
cool.
need to make Dicken the spotlight view, don't I?
Yes.
Speaker view.
So hopefully, Dicken
Yeah, but
should
last time
appear
it
up
was
there.
speaker view, and Karen rambled, but just kept coming up as speaker view, even though she wasn't. So I keep spotlighting the video.
Oh, I don't know. That's what really told me. So.
Hang on a minute.
You just hover over it. Pin it, doesn't it?
Yeah, pin it, spotlight.
Yeah.
Pin video
That's it.
Okay, queuing.
Somebody said.
into full screen. Wide. Oh, so that's
We've
recording
recorded
now.
all of it, so we can send it to her.
Right. So Dicken's audio is good, and he's on screen.
Dicken, do you need to go and get a cup of tea or a drink or anything? Because we're going to probably start in about 10 minutes. So if you wanted to
Okay.
run and do anything, then
Yeah, I will. I'll go grab some water. Yeah.
I was going to say, let him know that he's going to be on the main screen when he comes back from having his water, because he might not know. I'll just leave it recording
Cool.
because I can cut all the first bit out.
try and make that completely.
Yeah.
So you're in on Rudy, it's a mail off.
Sorry?
Is our mail off?
What
Actually, we haven't been getting many.
Pardon? But I think there must be a man down for it.
Look who I dragged in.
Hey, you're on the big screen now, so everyone that's arrived so far can see you. So if you, I don't know if they can hear you.
Hey.
Hey. Viva la viva. Andale.
Everybody can see you now in the audience. They're coming in.
Viva, viva.
I hear you're off to Hawaii, Koizi.
We are, yeah, Wednesday.
So is it cold in Lacona now?
It's not cold. It's we just started getting rain, so it's been raining the past few days.
So some beach time will be nice.
Oh, you're going to have to go to Hawaii. That's horrible.
What a bummer.
Oh, darn.
It was a tough gig, but somebody had to do it.
Hey, I'll move the webcam so you can see the room.
Oh, okay, good.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Mark's got to go. He's going to go to turn the lights in.
Can you see? No.
Oh, maybe this webcam is. Hang on a minute. I'll have to select this
You're going
webcam.
to go to get the
Look at you. Woohoo.
Yeah, I've Oh, there you go. There.
Oh, that's better.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, can you
Oh, nice.
see the room now?
We need to that is
Or when-
say hello into it.
I did good.
Peter Anderson. Peter Anderson.
Okay. See him. Hi. Hi, Quincy.
Hi, Peter. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Showing them the room. Yeah.
How you doing?
Good.
Wow. Oh, look at that.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Hey, good.
Everyone's just kind of filtering in now. But we've got the webcam on top of the laptop at the moment.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And also, because we need to plug you into the speakers, you're kind of a bit further back in the room. So as you're talking, it may be fairly difficult for you to see people, but there's not a lot we can do about that at the
Do you need
moment.
to put the charger in here?
Hey, look, closest picture. Is it?
Might be a photo.
I'm going to use my headset.
Bye.
See you, Cozy.
Bye.
Is that any clearer with the headset, Jenny? Does it make a difference?
Well, we can hear you really well. And
Okay.
Hello, Dicken.
Hi, Pat. Wow, it's great to see you.
Are you well?
I'm doing great. So good to see you. Thank you for your lovely messages.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome.
Looking forward to hearing you tonight.
Okay, good. Good.
Isn't she lovely, this girl?
Yeah. Wow.
So do you know if Nina ended up showing Jacob some videos? Because she emailed to ask me which ones I thought he might like to watch. So I knew we had some children. I think I mentioned Rihanna's, but I wasn't sure if it was a bit old.
Yeah. I haven't talked to her about it yet. I'm going over there later today. So
How long have you been home?
What's that?
How long have you been home?
Oh, a week and a half.
Oh, not long at all.
No. No.
So once you get back from Hawaii, do you have a bit of time at home?
Yeah, the first week in January, I'm going to the Innate Health Conference in New York City.
Oh, cool. Is that with Pulaski?
Yeah, it's with the AISH group there with Henry Harris and Zvi Werner. Yeah, you know them?
Wow. Yeah. I know.
They're trying to do in New York what the Tikkun is doing in the London conference. They're trying to get that going here. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Are you coming to the one in May?
Yes.
So I think they're hoping to they want 1,000 people at this one.
I know. Unbelievable.
I met a young girl. Do you remember? I think she came to stay with you as well. Louise, and her mum's called Alison.
Oh yeah, sure.
And we filmed her telling her story.
Good.
About the training in Manchester, but she's so articulate. And
yeah, she is, isn't she? I love her. She is so good. I think she should be on a panel at the conference.
yeah, I put her name forward, and also I'm doing a conference just for women in January, and I've said that she should be a speaker, like not even a transformational story, just a speaker, because she understands it so beautifully.
Yeah, she does.
And I think she'd really hit a younger audience.
Yeah. They are great. It was so fun
I've been working with Allison for a really long time. And then they both came over to do a 4-day retreat. They're wonderful, just wonderful. I'm a big fan.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay.
We've done quite well sticking to the time slots at this conference.
Wow.
We've been doing 9:45 to 1:30.
Yeah.
And then 1:13 till 6, people go off and go to the beach, have some food, go hiking. They come back at 6 and we do until 8.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Really relaxing and
I like that a lot.
We're thinking we'd like to come back here just for a holiday. It's so beautiful. Have you ever been to part of Spain?
I haven't been to that part of Spain. No, I've been to Seville and Barcelona.
I think Barcelona is. I can't remember if it's up or down actually. It's up.
Yeah, it's up from Seville, but it's down from Madrid.
I think it might be about 500 kilometers up the coast.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's quite a community of people in Barcelona now.
That's good to hear.
And then yesterday, Gabriela, Antonio, and Marion all did a Spanish day. So the whole day was in Spanish. The breakouts were in Spanish. So we're going to add all of that to the movie site in the multi-language section.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
No, 5 participants, I just realised. Hello, everyone else. They're muted. I think it must be. Yeah, we are recording. Oh, good. Manage participants. We've got Dicken, Jane, Karen.
I'm looking at some of the other people who are on here. Karen, good to see you.
I can only see you, Dicken, so I didn't know everyone else joined. I just see.
It's just there's a few people who joined in, and I was just saying hi.
Can you see people from there or not really?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, definitely.
So I'm just going to move the speaker because we've got this tiny little speaker so that everyone can actually hear you. I'm going to go and put it closer to the crowd.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Hey, Dicken.
Yeah.
We'll give you the thumbs up in a moment when we're ready to go.
Okay, good.
So before you begin, Dicken, I'll just show you everyone with the webcam again.
Okay, great. Yeah, please.
Wave.
Oh boy, yay. Hi, everybody.
Hello. Hello, Dicken.
Hello. Oh, this is great. I can tell it. I can tell there's no partying going on there.
No,
This is one big party.
Yep, definitely. I'm so pleased, so pleased. Well, I think there's no introduction or Dicken, I'm sure, but I'll say this is Dicken Bettinger. So I'll just leave it at that, and I'll hand it over to you, Dicken. Thank you. And thank you so much for giving me the
Hello, everybody. Oh, this is so exciting to be with you. And special thanks to Sheila and Mark and Sue and Rudy and Jenny for making this all possible, and everybody else who pitched in. A special hello to a lot of the familiar faces that I see out there, some really good friends. So it's great to see you and be with you. Mark asked me to talk a little bit about the principles in regards to relationships. Well, I'm not sure it has anything to do with relationships, but no, just kidding. I remember when I first came across the principles in 1986, and the very first insights I had immediately helped me with my relationships. And I think seeing my relationship, especially with my kids, seeing my relationship with my kids improve, seeing that I could have an even deeper connection to my kids, who I love deeply already, but I think, as many of you have discovered, there's no boundary to love. There's no limit on love. There's no limit on our capacity for compassion and understanding. It's not like anybody ever comes to the end of realization with the principles, because none of us can ever say, well, I couldn't possibly be any more loving. Couldn't possibly be any more compassionate for other people's pain and suffering. So I love that the principles are open-ended. I love there's no end to what you can learn. And I love that there's no end to the beauty we can discover in our relationships. I don't know, you just missed, my wife made a brief little cameo appearance here a few minutes ago. Koizi and I have been married 46 years. And when I came across the principles, all the books on relationships said, well, relationships inevitably have to go through stages. And the first stage is the honeymoon stage. And then after that, you go through a stage where it starts to feel, you get a little disappointed and disillusioned because things aren't what they seem. And then you go through a period where you sort of struggle and have difficulties and disagreements. And then you go through a stage where you begin to find a way to resolve some of your differences. And then hopefully at the end of all of this, you can finally come back to feeling really good about each other. Could you imagine if that were ultimately what's true about relationships? Is like, okay, you start off great and then expect the worst and then struggle through it, and then hopefully you'll get to the other side someday. Wow. Well, the principles just abolish that notion completely for me. I saw that the honeymoon phase is not a phase, is our natural state of mind. And that when any of us fall into that natural state of mind, you can't help but to feel unconditional love for whoever stands in front of you. So it's not a stage. My wife and I joke about this. We basically say, I can look at my wife sometime and I say, it's happening again. And she knows what I mean. She knows that I'm looking at her, and it's like I'm a teenager with a crush on my first girl. Right? That's the honeymoon feeling, which is natural to all of us. And I want to say a few things to show you how, as you understand the principles deeper, you begin to have a much greater ease going through any experience. But you can't help but to become more resilient, which just means you keep coming back to this honeymoon feeling over and over and over again. I remember I worked with a CEO of a big company, and he was running this very huge company, and he had so much stress that at the end of his day he would go and have 3 or 4 double martinis as his way of trying to soothe his soul from the stress that he was feeling. And he said the highlight of his life up to that point was one time falling asleep with his grandson on his chest. He said it was the most peaceful, most loving he had ever felt in his life. He said, now that I've learned the principles, I can honestly tell you that rather than having that experience once in my life, I have it 50 times a day while he's at work, coming back to over and over and over again this deeper feeling of love and connection. Okay. It's impossible to describe the magic that happens as you realize that you're connected to something that's impossible to describe, impossible to define, impossible to grab onto. But I do know from sharing these principles for 30 years that when people begin to get a sense of their connection to something greater that's living through them in a very logical way, but also a very mysterious way, that it does something for people. And one of the ways that you can tell that it does something for people is they get more and more present in their relationships. They listen better. They feel more warmly. They become more resilient. It's built into us to be healthy. It's built into us to be loving. And it's built into us to be wise. You know, I was thinking back to when I first started learning about the principles, and I had been a psychologist for 10 years, and all of a sudden I hear people saying, deep inside of you, this is what I heard. This is what I heard that helped me. Deep inside of you, deep inside of everyone, is the power of thought. Deep in your soul is the power of thought. Now, this is a metaphor. I'm using a metaphor because it's not actually inside your body, but let's for a moment, it's just a metaphor. I like it. I like it. I like thinking that deep inside of me, I am connected to the same power that governs the universe, that creates all of life. Sid Banks says the power of thought is the most powerful energy, the most powerful There's nothing more powerful than thought. Why is that? Because it from the moment you're born until you die, it is creating every single moment of your life and experience. And as it's to begin to get a sense that you have within you a connection to the power that is the most powerful power. And just look at it this way. Every single human experience from agony to ecstasy is created from this power, no exception. There is not a single moment of your life you can't see, you can't hear, you can't feel, you can't taste, you can't enjoy Spain, you can't enjoy the beach without the power of thought, right? Sometimes I think of it as a space inside of every human being that's full of potential and possibility, waiting to burst forth into human consciousness and create this moment, this moment, this moment, and this moment, to create this moment of experience freely, generously, lovingly. It's some people talk about the generosity of spirit. This is the same force that creates everything that exists in life. And it gives generously. Everything that you see around you, every single thing you see didn't exist at one point, and it came into being. I mean, that's the beauty and mystery of life, is that out of this force, out of this nothingness, out of this pure energy, everything comes into being. And Sid Banks says, if you glimpse this power, if you glimpse this space, if you touch this space, if metaphorically you step into this space, you have stepped into this creative power of possibility and potential where any thought and any experience is possible. It's such good news. Okay, let me see if I can now translate this into how, just understanding this, given the time that I have today, I'm going to mostly talk about the power of thought. But please understand, you can substitute the power of consciousness, the power of mind, because they're so intimately interrelated and connected, they can never be separated. Right? If you touch this space within you, Sid Banks says it must manifest as something beautiful in your life. It must create something beautiful through you, as you. You touch this space, your level of consciousness will rise. What does that mean? Very simply, if you start to feel better, you see through that feeling, you see a different world. And that feeling is filled not only with potential and possibility, but it's filled with wisdom and knowledge and knowing. In other words, when people fill up with this feeling, they just know what to do. And they're guided and directed. Okay, so I was thinking about what is it that is the biggest stumbling block in relationships? I think the biggest stumbling block in relationships always comes back to a misunderstanding about feelings. Especially when it's inevitable and normal and natural to feel the full range of human experience. So it's inevitable and natural that you're going to feel irritated, annoyed, frustrated, impatient. Boy, I would get impatient in my relationships. Hurry up, hurry up. What's taking you so long? Anxiety, I would get anxious in my relationships. Get frustrated that people weren't behaving the way I hoped they would or wanted them to. There seems to be a lot of that going around. So one of the very first insights I had was that every feeling I have comes from within. Every feeling I have is arising in the moment out of this power within. Every single feeling I have, whether it's love or frustration or impatience, is being created from the power of thought. Do you know what that means then, if you really start getting a glimpse of that and seeing that? It means that you can't say that whatever you're feeling is coming from any place else. It's the end of blame in relationships. I was doing a training to a business group and talking about, if you really see the power of thought, you can't blame people anymore for what you're feeling. It's created from within, from this power. It's not being, nothing in the physical world has the power to create. A person doesn't have the power to create a feeling in you. It's funny to me thinking about how if that were really true, what life would be like. We'd all be we'd all be walking around. We could create anything and anybody. Oh my gosh, terror would reign. Do you know how much fun you could have with people, especially the ones you didn't like? You could create all kinds of havoc in people if you really did have that power. Well, that's a spiritual teaching, is that nothing in the physical world has the power to create. A car, the traffic doesn't have the power to make you miserable. Right? What a person says to you does not have the power to piss you off or to make you anxious. So I was doing this training for this group of business people, and this one guy just put his head down. He kept shaking his head back and forth, going, oh, geez, oh, geez, oh, geez. And I couldn't help it. I said, what's going on? And he says, you've ruined all my fun. Who am I going to blame? Who am I going to blame now? Who can I blame? All right, now there's the upside of beginning to realize that right this moment, anything you're feeling is not coming from another person. I'm gonna try and keep it to relationships. It's not coming from the other person. It's beautifully being created from within by this power of thought. That's the only place it can come from. Now, what that does is you start realizing that so much of the thinking you do just continues to lower your spirits. Sometimes I think about 90% of the thinking people do is just not helpful, not particularly helpful. Right? So as you begin to realize that, you inevitably begin to fall out of, I don't know how else to say it. It's not a technique. It's not a doing. You just wake up out of a lot of the thinking you're doing, and it falls away. When you fall into the now, thinking naturally comes and goes, and a lot of the thinking that you were holding on to falls away. You stop being caught up in your own thinking. You stop holding on to it. You stop thinking that it's truth. Now, what that does for people, inevitably, is it makes you more resilient. What does that mean? Very simply, it means you become more like a little kid again. You get upset and you get over it really quickly because you don't keep feeding it with more thinking. I love working with people and watch them become more childlike. more lighthearted, not so serious, right? They get over themselves. they get over themselves, right? Sid used to talk to us all the time. Don't be serious. Seriousness is a feeling. And if you recognize that that's coming from thought and it falls away, it's built into us to lighten up. You know, have you ever heard somebody say, you got to lighten up? You know, become more enlightened. Okay. The second thing I realized, that was the first thing I realized, is that it's all coming from within, from the power of thought. It's the most beautiful thing that can happen for you in terms of your relationships, because it takes your feelings out of relationship with the other person in a sense, and it frees you to be accountable for your own experience rather than blaming it on the other person. I'm irritated because of how you're acting. I'm frustrated because you're not doing this. I'm impatient with you because you're so slow, or whatever. Okay, the second thing I realized, the power of thought is part of nature. It's built into nature. It's our true nature. You know what happens in nature? You have weather. It's part of nature. I used to think if I get healthy enough in my life and in my relationships, I'll stop having weather and it'll be sunny all the time. Now I love the weather. Listen, I live in the Pacific Northwest. I'm looking out my window. It's raining out. If I walked around saying I can only be happy when it's sunny, I would be miserable living here. You're going to have weather. It's normal to have weather. Boy, did that help me to realize that my wife is going to have weather too. My kids are going to have weather. Nothing I do is going to prevent the fact that they're going to have their own weather. As you begin to see that the power of thought, the nature of thought, is to create a full range of human experience, that's what gives birth to compassion. So that then when somebody is having their own little thought storm, you don't take it personally. You go, oh, they're having stormy weather in Coiseville. There's a downpour going on in Dickenville. Right? So you begin to see that it's normal to have weather, and you become a lot more compassionate about it, and you begin to realize that every human being that stands in front of you that you're in relationship with is also being lived and brought to life by the power of thought within them, and that they're plain and simply feeling and experiencing their own thinking. Right? It cleans things up in a relationship when each person is living their own thinking rather than we're causing each other our experience. Okay, now one last point I want to make about this, the third insight. So the first insight is 100% of what you're feeling is coming from within. It's the end of blame. It has to create resilience and more childlikeness in you. You're going to have weather, and everybody's going to have weather. And when you understand that more deeply, you have more and more compassion for people and the weather they're having and going through. Now, here's the other piece of it. The third insight I wanted to talk to you about is if you begin to see that your upset feelings are very simply just thought in the moment. Your worst feelings, the ones you create the most pain in you, become friendly. They become like friends. They become like friends. Sid said feelings are the indicator of the power of thought. Now, a lot of people, I think, misunderstand this, and they think feelings are the indicator of the content of your thinking. Go deeper. That's very psychological and surface. That's not really even seeing the principles. The principle is that there's a power that generates and creates everything. Deep within you is this power of thought. So if you wake up, if looking within is you feel stressed, you feel upset, you feel annoyed, you feel bothered, and these feelings are very helpful and friendly. They wake you up to the fact of thought, to the power of thought, not to the content of your thinking, to the power of thought, which means two things. Number one, what I'm feeling is coming from me, so it's the end of blame and the beginning of accountability and the birth of resilience and childlikeness, so you can lighten up. Thank goodness we feel bad. It's like a beautiful alarm clock waking us up to the now so that we can recognize the beauty and the power of thought. Yes! I don't know if you could hear that. Could you hear that? There was some kid on the listening in that had some things to say about my talk. I think was putting an exclamation point on this point that feelings are friends, right? And so the second thing that when you feel stress or upset and you're around other people, not only is it waking you up to the fact that it's being created from within and not from without, but the second part of it is the most beautiful part. It wakes you up to the power of thought is infinite creative potential. Infinite creative potential for new thinking and new feeling. So that when you really see the power of thought, you are wide open to possibility in that moment, which means no matter what thoughts and feelings you are stuck in your relationship, they don't have to limit you. They're invitations to possibility. They're invitations to creativity. They're invitations to new thinking. So that, as Sid says, when you touch that space, it must give birth to something beautiful, and you start to feel better, and you start to think with thinking that's more helpful to you. All right. So the other day, I got really frustrated. I was going back and forth with somebody on some emails, and we were disagreeing about something, and we were both in. I could tell he was getting into a reaction, and I was in a reaction. Right. My wife looks at me and she goes, "Dicken, you are really worked up about this." And I said, "I know I am." She says, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I says, "I don't have to do anything." Right? I just wait a minute. Right? And I looked, metaphorically, looked within. It's just thought. It doesn't have to do with the other person. But more importantly, when I say it's just thought, that means it's just infinite creative potential. Yay. Right? So I just open up, and within no time, I started getting flooded with a whole bunch of new thoughts, creative thoughts about what I could do in relationship to what we had been talking about. And then I also got a very practical thought that occurred to me in that openness. When I was when people look in the direction of the power of thought, you are open-minded. You are open to receiving something new and fresh. You are not holding on to the old thinking. You're looking toward the creative potential and power that governs the universe. You look in that direction, and something new and fresh and alive can come. And it just occurred to me, it'd be so much easier if rather than trying to do this back and forth through emails, we just talk on the phone. It was so obvious. And I sent him an email saying, hey, let's talk on the phone. And then like 5 minutes on the phone, we had completely resolved everything. We had it all figured out. We were super excited about what was going on. That's the power of thought, to transform your personal reality from struggle and difficulty to possibility and opportunity, and to return to that honeymoon feeling, to return to that feeling of unconditional love and connection to other people. Well, there you go. Half an hour's worth of some things that occurred to me to share with you. Have fun with this. The more you recognize that the power of thought is your friend and it's inside you and it's doing it can do all the heavy lifting for you, and that you can rely on it and turn toward it, and it'll keep bringing. There's no end to what it can bring you. So it gets more and more fun the more you look in that direction.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
I'm so, just before you go, Dicken, I'm so pleased. That means I can be less serious now. Yeah, I'm really.
Yeah, you need to be a lot less serious, Mark. You're one of the most serious people I've ever met.
Once again, another big hand. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Okay, the final furlong here. After the next breakout session, can we all please make our way back here? We've got a surprise for you afterwards. So be as quick as you can afterwards, making your way back to your seat. Thank you. So just make your way to the next breakout session. Thank you.
Hi, live streamers. I'm going to move you over to the back of the room where the next breakout's happening. So that should happen in about 5 minutes. Okay. So if any of you want to go and grab a cup of tea or something for 5 or 10 minutes, you're probably not going to miss much because everyone's just getting reorganised.
Thanks, Rudy.
No worries.